I lived in the city of Townsville for about, I think I lived there for about 2 years. I was a real wanderer, right? There were reasons for that, though. Things that happened to me. So it wasn't all good. Anyway, I got a job for Townsville Cleaning Services. And he was a guy that would clean things up, right? We had to go to the Australian Institute of Marine Science. It's about an hour's drive out of town, and the whole area is a national park. It's beautiful out there, and it's a huge complex. It's enormous, and that's where everyone around the world comes and does marine research on reefs. Right? It's world famous. And anyway, they our job was there was air conditioning all throughout the building, and there was ducting in there. And they'd put these banks, what they call heater banks, in there. And the idea was they were elements that would heat up to take the humidity out of the air. But they were all aligned with asbestos. So our job was we had to remove that asbestos. And then we had to reline the area with a non-carcinogenic board. And then we had to also clean that ducting out with an air hose that we would feed down it at high pressure, and it would just blow everything out to get all the asbestos out. And then a guy would have to set up this device to measure it to see if there was asbestos in the air. It would actually draw air in through liquid. I've seen it. I've seen exactly what it is. It's a little glass spear, and that's what embeds itself in your lungs. And so there was plenty of spare time at this place. And it had the International Library of the Sea, right? And me, I've always been a professor. I've always been a bookworm, and that's where I'd spend my time, right? And I would be looking at beautiful old books from the 1500s and earlier. You know, they were on parchment. And they had the original first copy of Charles Darwin's The Origin of Species there, right? Now, when Charles Darwin first wrote that book, he had a preface in the book. And the preface said, "This is only a guess. I might be wrong. This needs a lot more further interpretation. And what I've written down needs to be analysed, researched, and will change over time." Right? He actually wrote that. I remember reading that. I've actually seen on YouTube guys mentioning that, and I've actually seen it and held it in my hands. I put white gloves on. I'm respectful for these ancient books, right? So he wrote that, but the globalists, probably the same families that are here destroying our world now, have always been here, you know. And anyway, they took it out because it didn't fit the narrative. Because globalism, you hate the church, right? But you work in with them. It's a funny situation, right? But you want to control the church, you know. And they wanted the narrative of evolution. Exactly what they said is what it had to be, because it had to fit in with the 5,000 year history and all those histories, right? So yeah, I just was obsessed. I just read so many of these books. They were just beautiful, some of them. It was a huge library. And people would actually come there to study the library. And because it was a national park, I'd go down every night with the night watchman, and we'd walk out on this wharf that they had there. It wasn't for the public. It was only for like scientists. They would come there on boats, the scientists, though. They'd travel, say, from America. Or, you know, scientists travel around the world in yachts, believe it or not. And we would go up the end, and we'd have all these little pilchard fish. They'd been frozen. And we would have them in buckets and line them up, and we'd turn the spotlight on and cast them across the water, and that whole water would boil with like yellowfin, and there was barramundi there. It would just boil with fish, no joke. And they were enormous, right? It's like a fisherman's dream, but it was national park. No one was allowed to fish there. It was just amazing. I'll never forget how many fish was in that spot because it wasn't touched by humans, but they were fed. So, you know, I don't know if that was good for them or made them like KFC eaters. I'm not too sure.